Chapter 4. So these are the hobbits, Thorin muttered, looking us up and down. I stiffened at his words and puffed out my chest. I copied his movements and looked him up and down. I could size him up too. Gandalf led Bilbo away to talk to him, but I found myself frozen in place. Tell me, Miss Baggins, have you done much fighting? Thorin asked me, looking me deep in my eyes. I held his gaze for a moment until I could not longer take the awkwardness. He had won this time, but it wouldn't be the last time. I would beat him next time. I cleared my throat, looking down. It had occurred to me I hadn't actually heard what he had said. "Excuse me?" I asked. "Axe or sword? What's your weapon of choice?" He repeated the question, dumbing it down a bit. "Why do you ask? You looking for a fight?" I asked, doing my best to seem tough. No way was he going to get the better of me in my own home. Who did he think he was? He walked even closer to me. I could feel the air around him stir as he looked down at me. I held my breath and clenched my fists, as if that would do anything. "Just as I thought. Much more of a barker than a biter," he whispered. He looked towards the others with an amused grin, and a few snickered along with him. Thorin walked into the dining room, the others quick to follow. I stood in my spot a moment longer, letting out a breath of air I had forgotten I was holding. Who was this guy, and why did he have such an effect on me? Brushing myself off, I walked after the group and into the dining hall. Thorin was sitting at the head of the table with his back to the entrance of the room. I leaned against the wall to his left, watching over his shoulder. Gandalf stood just in front of me while Bilbo had taken a spot on the wall to Thorin's right. I had come in while Thorin informed the rest of the company of the meeting he had just attended. "And what did the dwarves of the Iron Hills say? Are they with us?" Duin asked, hopeful. Thorin sighed. "They will not come," he told the company. "They say this quest is ours and ours alone." "A quest?" Bilbo chimed in. "Bilbo, my dear fellow, get us some more light," Gandalf told him. Bilbo walked away with an annoying huff, before quickly rushing off to grab a candle. He placed it down on the table beside Thorin as Gandalf pulled out a map. I moved closer to the table, standing now directly behind Thorin's left shoulder. It was his turn to stiffen, and he gave a quick side eye towards me. I did my best to act as if I had not noticed. "The Lonely Mountain. I read." "Aye," Thorin responded, this time fully glancing back at me. The company erupted into chatter about the mountain as well as dragons. They all wanted a piece of it, and I couldn't help but chuckle at the thought of some of them fighting a dragon. I noticed the two brothers were especially cocky. Even with their size and strength, they would not be able to take on a dragon. As the noise grew louder, I felt my blood pressure rise. Bilbo tried to quiet the group down, cutting into the conversation with quiet "Excuse me, s." "Enough," Thorin shouted over the noise. Everyone quieted down. If we have read these signs, others will have read them too. Eyes looked to the mountain, assessing, wondering, weighing the risk. Perhaps the wealth of our people lies now unprotected. Do we sit back while others claim what is rightfully ours? Or do we seize this chance to take back Eber? He stood up with his fist in the air. The company cheered, and I noticed goosebumps covering my arms. Bilbo cleared his throat and gave a small nod to my arms as I did my best to make them go away. "You forget," Balin interrupted, "the front gate is sealed. There is no way in." "That, my dear Balin, is not entirely true," Gandalf said, fancily pulling out a key from his cloak. "How did you come by this?" Thorin asked him, eyeing the key. "It was given to me by your father for safekeeping. It is yours now," he said, giving the key to Thorin. "If there is a key, there must be a door," Philly chimed in. I rolled my eyes and looked at Bilbo, who did the same. It was hard to bite my tongue when there were so many opportunities for a good sarcastic comment. Gandalf nodded. "This map speaks of a hidden door to the lower halls. However, dwarf doors are invisible. The answer lies here on this map, but I do not have the skills to find it. There are others in Middle-earth who can. The task I have in mind will require a great deal of stealth, and no small amount of courage. But if we're careful and clever, I believe it can be done," he told the group, glancing at me and Bilbo. One of the younger dwarves, who I believe was introduced to us as Ora, spoke up. "That's why we need a burglar. And a good one too," I stated, folding my arms and laughing. "An expert, I would imagine." "And are you?" one of the dwarves in the back asked. Everyone turned to me. "Am I what?" I asked, not fully understanding what he was asking. Oin, a dwarf with a hearing problem, looked at the other happily. "She said she's an expert." "Wait, YN? No. 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 YN's never stolen a thing in her life," Bilbo said, glancing at me. I nodded in agreement. With the exception of maybe a few pastries in my youth, I would say my record was pretty clean. "I'm afraid I'll have to agree with Mr. Baggins. YN is hardly burglar material," Balin stated. "What about you, Mr. Baggins?" Thorin asked, looking over at Bilbo. "Me? No. I'm no burglar either," he responded, folding his arms. The dwarves erupted in a chorus of words. They were annoyed and frustrated, and I didn't blame them. They came all this way and we couldn't help. Thorin put his head in his hands. My heart lurched unexpectedly. I wanted to help him, but how? And why? I didn't even know him. Eventually Gandalf got fed up with the noise and rose high above everyone. He lowered his voice and a dark shadow appeared over the room. "Enough. If I say the Baggins are burglars, then burglars they are. Hobbits are remarkably light on their feet. In fact, they can pass unseen by most if they choose. The dragon is accustomed to the smell of a dwarf, so the scent of a hobbit will be all but unknown to him, which gives us an advantage. You asked me to find the 14th and 15th members of this company, and I have chosen Bilbo and YN Baggins. There's a lot more to them than appearances suggest. And they have got a great deal more to offer than any of you know, including themselves," he finished, looking at us with a hopeful glint in his eyes. He looked back at Thorin. "You must trust me on this," he told him. After a few seconds of intense staring, Thorin nodded his head. "All right. We will do this your way." Bilbo and I tried to interrupt, to stop them from continuing, but it was no use. We couldn't be heard over the noise of the dwarves. "Give them the contract," Thorin told Balin, who, in turn, handed us a sheet of paper. The paper unfolded in many places and had 4 spots for signatures at the bottom. 2 were already occupied by Thorin and Balin. Bilbo and I skimmed through it. "Funeral arrangements?" he said in shock. He continued to read through it. I wasn't paying too much attention to the paper, but more to Thorin, who had leaned over to talk to Gandalf. "I cannot guarantee their safety. Nor will I be responsible for their fates," he whispered. Gandalf looked at the ground. "Agreed," he responded. Thorin looked up and caught my eye. He had no readable emotion on his face, but his eyes drew me in and I couldn't stop staring. Eventually he shifted his gaze to Bilbo, who was going off with Boffer about ways we could die if we chose to sign the papers. "I feel a bit faint," he said, putting one hand on his hip and using the other to fan himself with the paper. "Think furnace, with wings," a Boffer told him. I need air," Bilbo said, gasping for breath. "Bilbo, are you okay?" I asked, walking towards him. "No," he said before falling over and landing on the floor with a thud.
I'm glad you enjoyed that video / gameplay. Just remember to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment down below. Until next time, goodbye!